shared so you can comment at will and say hi. I know it's Friday and you're thinking to yourself, why on earth have I got a notification through that Leonard's going on air? Well, as it happens, I did mention it on social media. We've got ourselves a very special episode. It's not going to be a long one. A nice little chat with Paul Jenkins, talking about what he's been up to since we spoke to him last, and also about his rather exciting Kickstarter campaign. We are waiting on Paul to join us. I'm hoping he's got a little notification or a reminder on his phone or something. But I've dropped him a line just to let him know that we're ready for him. Just put up our Patreon supporters, and as always, thank you very much indeed to you guys for all of your support. And I think we'll also showcase this as well, where you can find us online. It doesn't show everything. I'm going to have to update this because it doesn't have all of our audio stuff now. Because we do have ourselves a whole bunch of audio destinations where you can find our bits and pieces. So not only on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also on Twitter, but you can also find us on Spotify, iTunes, and also at SoundCloud. So there we go. But this is an incidental episode. This is one of our drop-in episodes, which allow us to talk to one or two people outside of the normal podcast schedule, and also allows us to have some very special guests on, which, you know, can't join us on a Wednesday or a Sunday. You are going to have to excuse me. I do not have a cup of tea. I do have a 2-pint cup of water, although I would love this to be beer, because it's that kind of vibe right now where we desperately need a storm here in the UK. It's very hot, it's very humid, it's absolutely cooking. But welcome along, Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego, and just as I am about to get started, we have a gentleman that's joined us, and seeing me sweating at him, which is really unfortunate, but I apologise in advance, Paul. How are you doing, sir?
Okay, sound. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, you're all good.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. I just wanted to make sure because I wasn't sure I'd reset my sound. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Well, I mean, you have been a busy boy when it comes to the podcast lately, because I've been seeing you. I mean, I was about to say as part of my introduction, because one of my favourite podcasts, and especially comic podcasts out there, is John Citra's and the Word Balloon. And while I'm not at his level at the moment of how much content he's currently putting out at some strange and random times of the day, yeah, it's been fun to see his podcast, and to see your episode as well. It was very cool, very enlightening. Some very interesting stories in there, some emotional moments, as always with conversations with you, which is good. But
John's a very, very smart guy. His questions are really intelligent, and so I love chatting with him because he puts us in an environment where you end up talking about really interesting things because of the way he asks questions. He's good at it.
Yeah, no pressure. But I will do. I'll do what I can. Although, to be fair, I mean, the chat that we're going to have today it's going to be very specific. It's going to be very much macro on a certain specific element of what you're up to, because we are talking about your Kickstarter campaign, which is Fairy Quest 3, which I'm going to bring up some bits and pieces. I'm sure you've got some media to hand as well, perhaps on a window somewhere. But first things first, hello there everybody, welcome along to Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana, and each and every show we talk to some interesting people about Comic-Cons, con culture, and all the stuff and nonsense that we get to enjoy at such shows. As always, the chats are open on all the social media, so if you're watching on Periscope, if you're watching on Twitch, on Facebook or on YouTube, do jump in with your comments. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know what you're up to this Friday. Into the Bloomers just saying hello. Up to my eyeballs in Lego today. which is not the worst way. I mean, to spend a day. I mean, I wish I could afford more Lego, but that's just me. Michael P as well saying good morning. And Solicitor Smeg is here. Sup, everybody. It's great to have you along. Welcome to you. So, yes, first things first. I mean, how's things been since we spoke to you last? Because when we had you on the show, you didn't necessarily mention the Kickstarter campaign. And I think it just kind of, you kicked it up a notch shortly after you spoke to us. So how's things been since we spoke to you last?
So in terms of the Kickstarter campaign, you know, we started it, I think, 7 days ago, or maybe 8 days ago on a Thursday. We hit a quarter of our thing on the first day, which was great. We are now at 25 out of 40,000. We just announced a few things. You know, like Kickstarter campaigns are a really interesting way of publishing, right? Because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people continue to be interested. But what happens with Kickstarter campaigns is you can do an update that you think is a really good one, and it can have an opposite effect. It can upset people. You have no idea. You know, it's a very interesting way of doing things, and it's a very pure form of publishing. So I think we did an update, I want to say 3 or 4 days ago, and it was to show a bunch of new art, an incredible new cover. Ali Garza's cover was painted. We had all these incredible things, and we had like 3 people drop their pledges.
What?
Immediately. And I thought, wow, that came on the back of showing this really, really great art. But I remember from the very first campaign that I did a deluxe edition simply because a fan asked me, would you do a deluxe edition? And I put it up limited to 150. And the moment I put it up, it just went crazy. And we made sort of $5,000 into the project just by putting it up. And I didn't even understand why. I barely described the thing. I know what to do now, but at the time, I didn't even know what a deluxe edition was. And so I had to kind of make it up as I went along. So it's really cool. I love doing it, but it is fraught with peril, right? Like, I'm sure you get other people telling you this, that it is complicated, but it's fun. I have a history with it that has been at times amazing and at times really challenging. Certainly, the history of the first 2 Fairy Quest books are like, to some extent, broke my heart as a creator, which I think would be an interesting part of our conversation, to tell you some of the ways in which this has been so challenging. You know, I'll always be honest about it, Leonard. You know that. Sure.
I mean, the one thing that I find interesting about Kickstarters, and the ones that I've seen over the course of the last 3-4 months, because people are trying to get as many eyeballs as they can on their campaign. Something that kind of gets left behind when it comes to actually marketing the campaign and talking about it is the story itself.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of like the first 4 or 5 paragraphs is about the stretch goals, about the talent involved, about how we're going to deliver this book to you, how we're going to get this project into your hands, instead of actually talking about the story itself and the meat and bones of the story that you're going to get. So if we talk elevator pitch, let's go with that. Let's go with that then. Tell us about Fairy Quest 3.
So Fairy Quest 3, in fact, I won't disagree with you. You're right that people do that, by the way. But in fact, the very first thing pretty much on our page is the story.
Absolutely.
The story of Fairy Quest. The only difference is that as I thought it would be really nice to do a rolling update first. So the first thing you see on our page is these are the new things we've added, or here's a thing that's going on right now. And we just do a rolling update to show people the progress. Is the first thing that they hit on the page. But then the next thing is the story, right? And so the story of Fairy Quest, I'll give you sort of a macro and a micro view. What it is it's a world called Fablewood, where all of the stories that have ever been told live in this giant forest, right? And I love to see it in pounds, by the way. It's wonderful. I miss the homeland, you know. So here it is. You know, it's basically there's this world where all the stories live, and all the stories are divided by genre borders. So you might have like science fiction and fantasy, horror realms, and they've got these genre borders that divide them. And then in the very center is where the children's stories live, because there's so many children's stories. And on the outskirts is where all the stories that have yet to be told live, because they're the undiscovered country. So all the parts of the forest that you've never been to. And in the center, Red Riding Hood and the Wolf live with the children's stories, and it's a real fascist environment. In fact, if you go back up again a second,
sure.
The image that you see right there is the dreaded mind eraser, and they're run by the Think Police. So it's very much like 1984, basically.
Wow.
And if they don't keep their story straight, if the children's stories deviate, then they have their minds wiped and they're reset like Stepford Wives, and they just basically come out and they just parrot their story, right? And so, unfortunately, Red Riding Hood and the Wolf, who are the most important story in the realm, they have become best friends. They love each other very much. And so they hear of a place called the Real World, and they decide to escape together to freedom along the Yellow Brick Road. And what happens is, in the first two issues, you see them as they begin to escape, they're chased by the Think Police. You know, they've got to be brought back to tell the story properly. And there is a mum, and she's reading to her little boy, and she begins to forget the story of Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. So the further they get from their story, the more they are forgotten. And the story itself then, for you and I, would be a story of like necessary friendship in the face of fascism, and how does it work, and how do we stay together against fascism? For a little 5-year-old kid, they're like, Red Riding Hood and the Wolf are best buddies, you know? And so it's a different, and what's so crazy about that book is that of all the books in my career, it is the one that seems the most straightforward and honest, which is great because it's my book and I publish it on Kickstarter, right? So every single time, and I mean every single time, I'm probably 99% of this, that I can give someone that book at a convention and they will come back and say, they'll buy it every time when they see it, and they will come back and they will say, I want the next chapter. And we waited. Umberto got busy, didn't want to do it anymore. I understood that, but at a certain point, I wanted to get back to my work. And the next chapter of the book, so let me quickly go to that because I'm rambling at this point. They go off on this adventure, as you see. And as you can see, the artwork is like ridiculously beautiful.
It's stunning, absolutely stunning.
And they get to this juncture. So right, that image that you've got right there, they run into a guy so the guy chasing them is Grimm, and this guy is Anderson. So it's, obviously Hans Christian Andersen and Brothers Grimm. And he is all about their freedom, and he shows them a map that will allow them to get away. They go away, they start trying to check. They're worried because they see Storyland kind of decaying. And at the point of the story that we are at the end of the book, they have found, they have to go into they begin this big journey, as you see, and they go through the dark forest, they get out the other side, they get chased. And at the point they're at right now, they go down, in our next issue, they go down into Wonderland and they see it's completely decayed. The whole thing has gone to pot. This is a group of subversive stories that don't want to tell their story anymore. So they're like a support group that meet each other every week. So they go into Wonderland, and the book is called Over, Under, and Through. They go over the land, they go under into Wonderland. And once they get to the other side, they realize two things. They are changing physically. So there's Umberto's new cover.
It's just good. Look at that.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And so they physically change. That's one thing that's happening. So they're physically changing. And we have Mike Bowden coming in to do the interior art, and he covers like the time where they begin to physically change. If you can look on my Kickstarter page, you'll see a few updates. If you actually keep going down a little bit,
yeah, sure.
We may have put some updates on, but here is the mother reading to the little boy. And at this juncture of the story, he's like, I just want Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. And she's like, there's no such story. Shut up, you little brat. Like, she's getting really annoyed.
Wow.
Because she's confused. It's like messing with her. And then if you go down just a little bit more, you can see that here's a new page of sort of just before they go into Wonderland. But what will happen is Mike's art will cover the bit where they arrive in Wonderland. They go through the looking glass and they realize on the other side of the looking glass, they're becoming real. And so now he takes them through and they come to their first genre border. I'm not going to give too much of the story away, but they come to their first genre border and they have to cross it, and they find themselves in the world of horror stories. And they realize, oh my, this is completely crazy. And look at the Tin Man, by the way, isn't he great?
Yes, it's just gorgeous.
Yeah, he's excellent, and Mike's brilliant. You know, he's amazing, and so. And then one last thing I suppose I'll say about that is we'll go below in a second. I'll show you more of that.
Sure.
So they get to horror stories and they realize people are just doing their job. Like the people in horror stories are just doing their job. There's Billy. Oi, Billy. Billy Tucci has been really helpful to helping us spread the word about this. So thanks, Bill. As always, he knows that. And Billy is doing a cover for us, which is amazing. And he's done an image for us that we've already seen. It's got like the rough image, and it's of Tinkerbell, and she's really sexy. So you knew Bill would do that, right?
Yeah.
So if you go below quickly,
sure.
Just below there, the next thing that you can see even is you'll see that we have a list of a bunch of covers, right? So we have a Mike Bowden cover. We have 3 pages that are up right now. We've got Ali Garza's cover right in the center right there. But we also have a cover by Billy. We have a new one that we announced by Jill Thompson.
Nice.
We have a Kevin Eastman cover coming. As you know, Kevin and I have been very, very close friends for a long time. And so, you know, the art is developing and we're releasing new art as we go, but everybody just adores this book. And the crazy thing about this book is that I can be at a convention and I might sell 1 or 2 issues of the Origin of Wolverine and 100 of these. It's just the way this book is. So yeah. Here we go.
I mean, the one thing, I mean, you mentioned about that, the way that different audiences will perceive the book and read the messages from the book. Looking through what you've shared in the videos, and I'm going to play the video as well, the Kickstarter video at the beginning, is something that it reminds me of is Si Spurrier's Angelic. I don't know if you've seen that. It's a story of... it's a future world where monkeys have evolved they can talk and they've developed their own religion, and there's a whole societal thing with the animals left on the planet Earth. For a young audience, for a young kid, they'll just see talking monkeys and a young girl off on an adventure. But then there's a real sense of for an older audience, they're seeing the whole idea of oppression and the relationship with Earth and animals and ecology. There's that whole sense of the different layers and different levels for different readers, and I find that's very much a big appeal and draw for me for Fairy Quest from what I've seen. So
yeah, I think it's a kind of an existential story, because what happens is once they go and they become self-aware and they realize they're getting closer to the end of the yellow brick road, right? And they've gone through horror stories and science fiction, and they see these realms, and they're becoming self-aware, but they're also losing their story elements and becoming more human. As they get more real, the wolf is becoming feral. She loves him still, and they're faced with this choice, right? Like, you know, do we escape to freedom and not become a story, or do we retain our identity? And you think of how it's probably always relevant, these kind of stories, but you think it's so relevant right now. Like, how do we identify ourselves at the moment? Like, everybody's very fractured. People are frustrated. The world is very strange at the moment, and people are dealing with COVID. And so when we have trials and difficult things that are happening to us, to me, you know, it's how do we retain our humanity, or how do we retain our identity, I should say, because in their case, they're not retaining their humanity. They're losing their sense of being a story and what makes them valuable. So there's that whole existential story. And then there's like Red Riding and the Wolf go up against, in our world, and we did this other book called Fiction Squad, which I don't know if you're aware of, but Fiction Squad was the original Fablewood story. So in the world of children's stories, the women are always the toughest. And so basically the queens and the witches are the mafia, and the Queen of Hearts is Don Corleone, and they fight against the witches, and like Dorothy and Alice are like the conciliaires, and they basically just like they're the lieutenants for the mob. So it's a really cool way of doing all kinds of mashes up, you know, like you can do all kinds of things, and these characters. It allows us to just create new ones, and it allows us to use existing ones and mash everything up. It's great.
That's so cool. obviously our current situation that we're all in on a global scale, it's something that has shifted a lot of our perceptions of story and how we perceive and consume the world. How long has this been kind of gestating as a story for Volume 3? And how has it changed since COVID has happened in how you're perceiving the story, how you've looking back at the script and looking back at how you've put the story together?
I haven't written about COVID yet.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to write about it. I think it was really interesting to kind of go back in my career when 9/11 happened. It was a very interesting moment in American history, being over here and trying to work out, like what to do. And what I thought was very interesting about it was that some people immediately wrote about it, and it took me about a year to get over it to be able to write about it. Maybe 6 months. I didn't want to write about it. So COVID, I'm not there yet. I want to write about other things, and then we'll get to COVID.
But how's it changed your perception of what you've already written?
No. Yeah, because what I've written is probably what I was going to write. So yeah. I don't think it's changed my perception yet. Not yet.
No, not yet. Okay. How long has it been in the planning stages? From what's been the timetable of putting this volume together?
6 years.
Wow.
So once Umberto realized he couldn't do it, he didn't want to. He wanted to move on. He was going to do some other stuff. I wanted him to come back, but he moved to a different stage of his career, right? And he's very busy. And so after a long period of time, I said, okay, great. At least in the story, there's a natural break, and Mike Bowden is incredible. So it's okay that there's a break in the story. And one thing that I have to do, which is probably our COVID story, my kid's playing a video game, and I got to turn it down because it's driving me crazy.
No worries. Well, I'll tell you what, while you're doing that, I will actually play the video so we can actually, we'll share that with everybody. This is the video for the promo video, which has been put together. It's at the top of the Kickstarter page, but this is something particularly special. This is the video that you can find and enjoy for Fairy Quest. He says, hoping that was going to play on there, but no, it looks like it's going to give me some grief. So tell you what, I think I'm going to change that and go at it a different way. Are you okay if I play this, or are you're back already?
No, please do. Yeah, we love to see that. That'd be
yeah, sure, absolutely. Let me bring that up. I've got to make sure I share audio. That's the one thing I always seem to forget to do. And then I play the video or play videos here, and it doesn't come out, and you can't quite hear it. But this is the video. It's at the top of the Kickstarter page for Fairy Quest 3.
And I am very, very hungry.
Hiya, Mr. Wolf.
So the big bad wolf says, I am the big bad wolf, and I am very, very hungry. Oh, hello. Claudius and I are reading his favorite book. This is Fairy Quest. And we are about to reprint Fairy Quest 1 and Fairy Quest 2 here on Kickstarter, where it all began. And we're also coming out with Fairy Quest 3, a brand new book. So we would love you guys to be part of our campaign. So we have planned a ton of extras and add-ons, lots of amazing swag that will add to every pledge as we're closing on our funding goals. We can't wait to bring you all kinds of exclusives and incentives that we'll announce if we're lucky enough to hit our stretch goals. And we have some special cover artists lined up. We have Ali Garza. We have Billy Tucci of Sergeant Rock fame, and we have Kevin Eastman, the co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Fairy Quest 3 is the next chapter in the Fairy Quest saga, which is set in Fablewood, a giant forest where all of the stories live together, but they're divided by genre borders. We originally published the work here in the early days of Kickstarter, and after a long hiatus, I'm really thrilled that we're going to be bringing our book back here again. I know you're going to love the new 48-page chapter with a new main cover by Humberto Ramos. And this time we're welcoming the incredible Mike Bowden, as well as our fantabulous friend Leo Olia, who's going to be doing all of the colors and all of the design and lettering on the book. Since our first Kickstarter, Fairy Quest has been translated into a number of languages. It's been a cool statue, we've seen live action, we've had a bunch of cosplay people come up as our characters, and we've even developed a live action version of it that we performed at Pinewood Studios in Atlanta. All of this comes down to the fans at Kickstarter. We can't do any of this without your help. Fairy Quest exists because of you, and now we're finally able to bring our beautiful book back into print. I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to finish it here where it all began. So thanks for watching our video, and thanks so much for helping us.
So there we go.
Hold on,
This is going to be. Okay, let me do that one again.
Okay. Take 10.
Take 10.
Not helping.
Take 10.
Yeah,
Fair enough. I think, I mean, we've got a question that's come up from Solicitor Smeg about Kickstarter, and I think I'll talk about that, the platform first. Like you say, it has been a bit of a break since the last time you did Fairy Quest on Kickstarter. What is it about Kickstarter as a platform, as for creators to actually put works forward? Is it the ability to keep a strong check on what people are looking at and what they're investing in? What is it? What's the big appeal for Kickstarter for you?
The appeal is also the difficulty. Isn't that crazy, right? So I have been a guy working in the mainstream quite a lot, and I've never been a mainstream person, you know. When I came into comics, I did Ninja Turtles and I did Tundra Publishing. And Tundra Publishing was a very complicated situation, but it was very much revolving around creators' rights, all of the things that would benefit creators. And I was lucky enough to work with Kevin Eastman, and you know, he had done so well and was so lucky to have made so much money and with the Ninja Turtles and give it back to the creative community. So I was always a creator guy first, and but you know, I broke into comics in a weird way as a writer. I went to San Diego, as you know, I've told you the story before, and I kind of showed up and said, "Can I write Hellblazer?" And they said, "Okay." And so I went, "Great," and started writing Hellblazer. And there's no way that anyone could do that, but I did it. And so I was never an insider. And then I got this phone call from Marvel, and they said, "Well, we don't think you'd be that interested in superheroes, but you know, do you want to come work with us?" So I went, "Yeah." And it was, you know, they won an Eisner for the Inhumans, and next thing you know, they let me write everything, and we rebuilt Marvel. So I was never an insider, and I was never a massive comic fan. I love the medium, but I wasn't a guy that would like live and die with Daredevil #7 or, you know. And so in that time, at the beginning of Kickstarter, Umberto and I wanted to do the book. We had been to a French publisher. They were not very straightforward with us. We had been to an American publisher. We didn't like the vibe from there. And I asked Umberto, would you let me run a campaign? And we did our first Kickstarter campaign. And this is in the early days of this is right when Kickstarter started. And we raised 96,000, and that was pretty strong, right? But
I was just going to say, you got burnt several times.
Burned.
Yeah.
We got burned on the first one and on the second one, and it broke my heart. It made me never want to go back. It is, and I'm not kidding you here, Leonard. It is the worst thing that's probably happened to me in my life, in my career certainly. We had some people that were part of, you know, my organization at first, and they. Let's just say they did not use the money the way that was intended. And so I personally had to fill in the shortfall, and it cost me a lot of money. And it was heartbreaking because ultimately fans look at me and they say, well, it took a long time for us to get our stuff. And I'm like, you have no idea. Like, I literally had to invest to get you all of your stuff and make sure it was done properly. So for the second one, and I think this is worse, the first one was like, I've often described it you go near a jungle, you get bitten by a tiger. Oh well, right? It happened. Like if you are close to a criminal, unfortunately, it happens, and you go, okay, bad for me. It sucks. That's the end of that. But you know, my publisher at the time was Boom, and Boom were exclusively publishing me, and they should have done a lot better. And they wanted to take the fulfillment of the campaign as kind of my business partner, and this is my mistake. I let them, and they did not fulfill properly. They did not deliver some stuff. They didn't answer the fans. They didn't do all the things you're supposed to do with a Kickstarter. And one of the parts of it that I think was really bad for me was that when that happened, they asked me, please don't get in the mix with the fans because you're just going to confuse how we respond to people. And halfway through the campaign, I could see fans losing their minds. And so I went to them and said, what are you doing? And they issued an apology. We're very sorry. We're just a little bit behind all that. And that would have been great if they'd have followed up then, but they did not. And so they put my reputation in jeopardy with the fans. And when this all happened, that broke my heart, because I'm not sure what else I could have done except never have handed it to them, but I mean, that's hindsight, right? You'd already done it. And so I didn't want to come back. And yet I can't let this book that seemed cursed I can't let my ability to publish on Kickstarter be attacked by that. So I said to my people at my company, which is Meta Studios, I want you to very clearly understand that this is difficult for me to come back, but that when we go back, we're going to face any problem head on, and we are going to be the best campaign. And I do most everything personally, and I do not have the time to do it personally, but I do it anyway. I answer every message. If I don't answer a message, it's going to be Sarah, our CEO at my company, who's taken it under her wing as well, even though she's really busy, and Stogie, our fulfillment guy, who we trust and we love, and he's awesome, right? So the three of us are the people that deal with it, and I deal with all the updates, the messages, I respond to people, and any holdover from Fairy Quest 2, there was a group of people that didn't get their deluxe editions, so we've addressed that directly, and we've said, if you didn't get it, let us know, and we'll make sure that you get it the best of our ability. And you understand, of course, and this is the part that needs to be understood. I raised $86,000 for my second Fairy Quest, and I think $60,000 for Fiction Squad, and every single penny of that was sent to Boom, right, to do the publishing. And that money should have been used properly, should it not? Right? I mean, there's an accounting that has to happen, and people should be, and so I can kick myself forever for trusting that, but unfortunately it happened already. And so now I'm taking the financial burden again of someone that, and we're still trying to get, accountings and, and so I've stopped. I'm not going to, it's not very professional to actually not speak about that. There's no professionalism in not fulfilling and ruining my reputation. Sure. So I'm very happy about it. And it broke my heart. I could not believe that somebody would do that, knowing full well what happened on the first one. I couldn't believe it, but it happened. And so now we are fixing anything that's a holdover for that. I guess I have to fix. Yeah.
I mean, I think it must be a testament as well, not only to the power of the story, the drive that you have to tell the story, but also the fact that the fans, they did come back for the second campaign. They were willing to support you. They understood and recognized the issues that you had with that first campaign. They did come back, and
actually they didn't. They didn't know that I had to pay for it personally. I didn't make that their problem.
Right, okay.
I never once told everybody that I had to fill in that shortful. I just took care of it. The problem was it took longer than it should have. So people were understandably frustrated. Why did it take so long? And it's like, well, you have no idea. Yes, it took too long, and I want to remedy that. Which is why I brought in my publisher, my exclusive publisher, to help me with the fulfillment so that it will be done properly from an existing warehouse. You figure that would be the way to solve it.
Yeah.
What a shame.
Man. So at which point you then we've had the gap then, the 6 years since that second campaign. At which point I have to ask then, what lessons, or what's the biggest lessons that you've learned to create the campaign for Fairy Quest 3?
So one thing that's weird is that, you know, Kickstarter has really changed, right? Like crowdfunding has really changed. And so I'm learning again, like you saw Billy Tucci show up in our stream. And so Billy is doing one right now. He just completed one via kind of Kickstarter for She. So that's an amazing thing. And like Billy just kind of like began to find this, and a lot of creators have found this, and that's amazing, right? Billy and I share a particular thing. We're not really insiders in the mainstream, even though we've been in the mainstream quite a bit and all that. We're not really the sort of insider type people. We tend to be more on the outside, right? And so I learned something really valuable from Bill, just about like how he mounted the Kickstarter and all of that, right? And then Brian Pulido is someone that I've known for 30 years, and you know, he's going great guns. I mean, we've been mates for a while and for a long time, and he's going amazing. I mean, he just does these amazing campaigns. He knows how to hype them. I told him, like, dude, you're like a carnival salesman. I can't believe it. Hey, man, you want this? And here's the thing. And boom, here it comes as a graphic. And I'm just like, Brian, you have got this down. But he understands elements of the fulfillment. So I'm kind of learning from my fellow creators how it's all changed. And at the same time, I have got a massive lesson that I would put to anyone. So Lister of Smeg, if you're listening, I can't give you all of the ideas, but I can tell you one thing. It had better be about you as a human being. It better be about you as a person. You better show your vulnerability. You better tell people what you're doing. And my instinct is always to directly deal with the fans. I've done it when I was part of the mainstream, especially. I would be the first person signing. I would sign for as many people as wanted it, and I'd be the last person to leave. And I've always been super friendly with fans and wanted to give them back. And yet I allowed myself to not do that for my second one, and that was a terrible mistake, and I will never do that again. So everything right now is about me and my company, Meta Studios, where I've got people that I know work directly for me, and I trust them, and it's us, and it's insular, and we're going to be doing it. So when you think about me and Billy and Brian Pulido and all of our people that are like doing this regularly, Jimmy Palmiotti, people like that, we're stuffing envelopes. We're making it happen. We're licking the envelopes and sending them out and doing the things, because you know what? It feels good. Yeah. And that's the way to do it. And don't ever and if I were to ever let anyone do, say, fulfillment, it would be like Brian Pulido, because I trust him and I know what he would do, you know? But really, do it yourself until you understand how it's done, and then allow other people to come in. You better monitor those people and make sure they do it properly.
Absolutely. Well, we got that question for. I mean, you addressed the question, how would an aspiring creator learn how to publish through Kickstarter? But you did have this follow-up. As someone who doesn't consider himself an insider, if you had control of the comic book industry, is there anything you would do to bring it back to glory that people too close to the genre may miss? Yeah, that's a big question, because that's talking overhaul of a long-established business.
Well, I've been part of an overhaul of a long-established business. You know, they were going out of business. They were this close to Chapter 7. They were going out of business. Do you want to know the actual answer, even though I don't know if I'd do it?
Go for it.
Make me the editor-in-chief of Marvel or DC.
Fair enough.
It's as simple as that. You know, there's about understanding that characters do not write themselves or draw themselves. They do not. Okay, they are done by creators, and it's the creators that are lifeblood of this thing. Take away, you know, I was very vocal about it with DC a number of years ago. This is about understanding that the central focus of any creative endeavor, intellectual property, is the creators, and supporting them and treating them the right way, but holding them to a standard. And so, were I to be the head of either of those two companies, the creative director of those companies, I would immediately begin to get the creators back into the place that we were in at Marvel Knights, because that's what they did with us. They brought me in and they said, we've broken it so badly that we're going to the last desperate resort of the creative corporation. We're going to let you do whatever you want. And they never touched me. They never edited me for years. They just let me write anything I wanted to do. And guess what happened? They actually allowed the creators to do what, and they revived their company's fortunes. And now they use my stuff all over in their films, you know, and it shows up every film. So
I'd also add possibly expand the creator roster as well, because I think they, at the moment, both DC and Marvel are pinning their flag on a small or smaller talent pool, and it's constricting the stories that are being told, from my opinion.
And it's been like that for years, right? Like it begin to have. I often tell this story, Leonard, but I'll tell it again. When I was at Joe Quesada's first editorial conference, I was standing around with Bill Jemas, and that's where we came up with the idea of Wolverine Origin, right? But Bill said something that I will not forget. He said to the editors, "What's wrong with you people? Like, listen, calm down. We're not giving you pink slips. But from now on, for the moment, you make good stuff and we will sell it. Marketing is not going to tell you what to make. You tell us what you want to make and we'll sell it." Imagine that breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the way that it should only be. It's only one thing, which is, you know, make good stuff. And we can now, making good stuff is literally the last resort. Everything else is like, let's market it a certain way. Let's renumber them as number ones. Let's have a tactic and a tactic and a tactic. Stop with the tactics and understand that great content is truly the lifeblood of anything that you sell. And if you start with good product, that's what will work. They finally had to start with good product. And so they let me come in and write this Inhumans book. And the funniest part about it, and I've spoken about it quite often, I have never heard of the Inhumans because I don't read comics. And so they said, "Do you want to do them?" And I said, "Okay." And then I read 2 5-page stories and then said, "Got it." And we won an Eisner Award. You want to know why? Because they just let us create good stuff. And so I would want to get back to that. When I look at things like the forced diversity, making Iron Man a young black girl, making Hulk an Asian kid, and all of that kind of thing, coming out with this kind of, that's not how to do diversity. That diversity isn't something that you just throw in and say it's a marketing campaign for diversity. No, diversity is actually inherent in the stories. And so I've often said that, you know, the book I did called Alters was always intended to be a Marvel and DC book, and they both always loved it, but told me repeatedly, you cannot do new characters. And I would say, that's funny. You're telling the guy that created the Sentry that we can't do new characters. So, you know, that's another thing I would do is great stories. You know?
The two that you, well, I mean, the ones that I pick, I mean, you've chose one there, which is Ironheart. I mean, I love that character. I love Riri Williams. I also liked the whole idea of the female Thor. I loved the Mighty Thor as a story, but I agree that it was the marketing that let that down, because it really did feel like it was just a sledgehammer, just kind of across the face of the reader. It was a case of a little bit. It was so heavy-handed in the way that it was marketed. The story itself, and I mean the character of Riri Williams. I'm any time that a superhero company or a Marvel or a DC introduce a character which happens to then just knock up the power levels, and all of a sudden this character just it's doing something interesting, it's shaking things up. I have no problem with that. It was just I felt it was just the marketing. It was a case of attracting so much attention on its diversity that I think really threw everything for a loop.
Well, diversity is a thing that we should aspire to, that we should have done anyway. That was always inherent in the way that we tell stories, because guess what? They're read by the people that are represented in them. And so they weren't diverse. It was all a bunch of, you know, like white dudes in spandex and girls with boobs that are bigger than their head, right? And that's what it was. And it was always going down that road. And I railed against that years ago. When Top Cow asked me years ago, would you come in and write Witchblade? And I said, no, thanks. Not interested. I don't get the silver cat suit. She activates her powers and then her clothes fall off. Stop it, right? And they finally let me do it. They finally let me do it the way that I wanted to. And, you know, I wrote her in T-shirt and jeans and she was really sexy. And guess what they made into the TV show, right? So I'm not talking about diversity. I'm talking about forced diversity. Come on, man.
Sure.
Like, let's just tell stories. So Riri Williams and all those characters, they could have been brand new characters that they could have brought in instead of refixing it. Anyway, it's the question that you asked me is what would I do? And what I would do is try to get the honest storytelling backed up by really good creators and characters that we love and reinvent it that way. So that's where I would go with it. No.
Fair enough. Let's talk, as we wrap things up, let's return to your campaign and to Fairy Quest 3. I mean, how are you feeling that the campaign is going? I mean, if we bring the campaign back up on screen, just to kind of show again where we are with the actual campaign, with 21 days to go, a third of the way there, 2/3 of the way there, sorry. What have you got planned for the 21 days, for the next 3 weeks? What have you got lined up to get you over that line?
So we have one more secret kind of like giant creator that's doing a piece for us. And when we get that, we will announce it because I think people will go a bit nuts and love it. We just did the deluxe edition. We pushed it out yesterday and today. We just did a bunch of new art. So you can see there, actually, you'll see Ali Garza's new cover. And if you go down a little bit further from there, you can see Ali's next cover, which is these two characters called the Mouse and the Clockmaker. They seem like a story that you would know, but they don't exist. And that's because everybody has forgotten their story. Right. So no one remembers the original. And then going down again, you'll see Mike Bowden's got a little cover rough. They all go into Wonderland this time, which is really cool. And you'll see what happens to Red and Wolf. Right. So as they start going through Wonderland and getting closer to the outside of children's stories, they start becoming real. And so they're going to develop and they're going to morph a little bit. And then they'll morph a little bit more. So in terms of artwork, we've got obviously all kinds of new covers, all kinds of new cover designs, different stuff that we'll show all the way down the road. In terms of stretch goals, that's one thing that I wanted to do a ton, right? I wanted to do a bunch of stuff that we give away. And so we hit like halfway and we said, hey, we're going to give you all bookmarks. And we're going to do this thing and we're going to hit our goal and we're going to do this thing. And we're going to do, you know, we're going to hit another goal and we're going to do this. So we're just going to keep adding swag into people's stuff because they love it. But the second thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to do the production values and make sure that those are really good. I mean, that's important to me. So the book itself is really hard. In fact, if you can
we saw in the video. I mean, it's that you always try and make sure that they are good quality books that are going out.
Yeah, if you bring up the Kickstarter page, you'll actually see a little bit further down. There is a thing where we run. If you can run the video on it, if you go back to the main page. If you scroll down. You will see a video. Keep going.
I think I know where you're talking. It's here, isn't it?
So this shows everybody. If you want to share that, and you can share it with sound, maybe people can see how we.
I want to make sure that I've got sound, so I'm going to play it. Let me know if I've got sound going out.
I will. Okay, so let's take a look at the production values that we put onto Fairy Quest. Here's the squared bound or perfect bound side of the book. We like to make something that lasts for a very long time. If you look at the back cover, and we've done it on both covers, you'll see, as I've held it up to the light here, it says do not deviate, but that's actually just using a spot UV varnish. So that's something that we brought to the front cover of all of our books. Let's take a look at the front cover. As I hold it up to the light, you'll see we've got the spot UV coating again, so it's in the eyeballs. But you can also see that Red Riding Hood is actually embossed on the cover, and some of the other characters are as well. This is the kind of book that we make to be very sturdy and beautiful so that it will last a really long time, and we hope that you will love it as much as we do.
Gorgeous.
And that's absolutely the way of it. I want people to have these books for a really long time and be able to pass them down. I don't really own very many comics that are like really small, you know, like the little individual books. I don't keep them. But I do keep hardcovers and some soft covers, and so I just want to make that kind of book. And there'll be 4 of the books in Fairy Quest. There'll be the Fiction Squad book, and we're going to do a bunch of more stories in Fablewood as well. The next one, actually, that I'm working on is a woman from the realm of romance fiction, and she is sent to be the ambassador to the world of horror stories, and she hates it. It's all about love and romance, and they're all about like death and destruction. But she realizes actually that when she gets there, that people are just people wherever you go. It's just cultural difference. So it's kind of the kind of story that reflects what we do in the way that we live, but also things that little kids go, "Oh, that's funny. She lives in a world of monsters," you know.
I think, I mean, it looks amazing. I think also the thing that also appeals, and I understand that you would have liked to have kept Ramos involved on the artwork, but the fact that you've got Bowden involved, it shows that evolution, not only of the characters, but also of the story as well. So it's like the whole thing is just taking a natural kind of flow of story, and I think that's very, very, for me, very, very cool.
I've done that before, Len, as well. I did Jekyll and Hyde. I did Batman, Jekyll and Hyde, and the very first half of it was sort of Jekyll, and the second half was Hyde, and we actually had two artists that were similar. So Jay Lee did the first 3 issues, and then when it switched, Sean Phillips did the last 3 issues, and so it was such an amazing book because of that switch. And so I think this really fits at this moment. You know?
Excellent stuff. It's also cool that you've got further plans for the story as well. It's evolving further than this particular campaign. It's going to go further beyond Volume 3. Like I say, it's a very cool campaign, and I think we want to put the address up so people can follow it. But if you do search for Kickstarter Fairy Quest 3 Over, Under and Through, I think it's just it's well worth checking out. I'm talking to the audience at this point. Please do go buy and donate. The one thing I have noticed as well, and you see this with some campaigns and some others, some campaigns start with very small entry points with merch and with just kind of like almost frivolous ways to kind of get the donations in. You're starting at 15, I believe it's £15. Let's see.
Yeah, $15, I think, so it'd probably be less in pounds, like 12 quid, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a back it, if you believe it, for the $10. No, but £15 to start with. How was the thinking of the price points put forward by yourself? Where were you getting the motivation for your price points?
The first thing is that I want anybody that wants to be able to read it, especially given, I mean, this is within the environment of COVID right now, like people are struggling financially, and I mean, like anybody else, it's hard to want to be able to ask people to separate themselves from their wallets right now if they can't. So the very first one was, you get all 3 issues, give us $15, right? Our work is much more expensive than that, but we want to make it available to everybody. So $15, and we'll get you all 3, and they're all 48-page content books, right? So those are some pretty big books right there, right?
Sure.
So there's that. And then the main book, we did the main thing, which is just like simple books, right? Like $30 for each of the Fairy Quest types. We're reprinting 1 and 2. So the first 100 backers got it for $25. And we do these kind of things, right? We go to the first 100. Oh, look, there's one available. Quick.
I was about to say there's one left.
Someone probably migrated into the deluxe edition, I would think. So all of those 100 I'm signing. We want to do those kind of things all the time. And I love to do that kind of thing, to add in extra signings and things like that. But then when you go through, it's like the regular books are $30. The special covers are a bit more expensive, but they're limited, and it's expensive to change the plates and get the proper covers and all of that kind of stuff. So, but Jill Thompson's we had at 50. We had all of Ali Garza's covers at 50. Again, we have to pay Ali to do a new cover, and all of that expense goes into what we do. And then we got Kevin Eastman and Billy's covers are more expensive, and we got bundles and all that. But you'll see it's mostly books, right? It's not other stuff, and all the chintz and the bookmarks and fridge magnets are things that we throw in for free because we don't want to mess it up. We just want people to buy the book.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm excited to see the campaign go further and onward, and I'm looking forward to the story continuing, because it's like you say, it is a compelling story. It's something that you can tell. There's some passion that you've put in, and there's a real drive that you need to tell the story, and that's always compelling for readers.
I want to tell Fablewood stories for the rest of my life. And it's such a great world, right? Crossing genre board. Someone goes from the world of science fiction and has to live in historical romance, they're going to be annoyed, right? Yeah. So the mashing of genres is really a ton of fun, and I want to do it for a long time, and I think people will love it if I do that.
I also like the fact as well that you are embracing other media as well, because that is where you came in as a studying film, so you can see this beyond the page, but there's still also the passion for making sure that what you get out as a printed form is of extremely high quality. So you're spinning a lot of plates, sir. You can't say further than that. We got one last question before we do kind of let you go. This is from Into the Blue Mister. I remember the Havoc Wolverine 4-parter from years ago. Had 2 different artists for each character. How mad was that?
Yeah, well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Kent Williams was involved in that Havoc and Wolverine thing, right? Kent is a great painter. I wonder if George Pratt was as well. I can't quite remember exactly, but yeah. I remember, if we're talking about the same one, Havoc and Wolverine, having 2 artists on it is challenging, but it's also rewarding, considering that if Umberto was going to go off and do some other things, actually the story was always morphing at the moment, and it may well be that the story actually found its right moment. It's actually maybe a good thing and Mike Bowden, for anyone that doesn't know him that well, I hope you do, but his stuff is incredible, and watching his designs for the way that they turn real is really cool. So
excellent stuff. Paul, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much indeed for coming on and sharing Fairy Quest 3 with us. Where is the best place for people to get the latest updates? Like you say, it's all about pimping the thing now. It's absolutely getting into people's faces and letting people know. Pointing people towards Kickstarter is one thing. Where else are you kind of throwing the project out into people's faces?
We have a Facebook page called Fablewood Stories, and so people can go right to that. Just look up on Facebook. It's called Fablewood Stories. Go find it. It's fun. We interact directly with people, and we have a bunch of fun, so that's all cool, right? You can find me on Twitter at mypauljenkins, and on Facebook, I'm all over the place. I've got fan pages and my own personal pages and stuff like that. And then on Instagram as well, you can find Fablewood on Instagram. What you can also look to is my company, Meta, M-E-T-A, Meta Studios. You can find us on YouTube. And one of the things that's really cool about what we're doing on YouTube, we're going to get right back into it now because we just did one last night. The story behind the stories. So anyone who's ever read my Hellblazer or my Spider-Man work or anything, I'm going to get back to telling those stories about what was actually behind each of those individual issues. So go find Meta Studios or Meta Studios Atlanta, maybe, on YouTube, and you will find us, and we'll keep you updated there as well. I
had no idea about that. Okay, so I think you've got one new subscriber, because I'll definitely get myself onto that one. Well, that's.
I did 5 weeks, maybe 6 or 7 weeks of one-on-one conversations with myself and Kevin Eastman about everything that we went through with Ninja Turtles and Tundra. So you might be interested in that. I'm down with that. But then we can also talk about that as well, because is that where the podcast that you've been doing with Kevin Eastman's been posted? Yeah, so it's on the YouTube. Yes, it's on our YouTube channel, Meta Studios, and so right. And you'll find the behind the stories. So once people see Hellblazer, especially, like when I wrote Hellblazer, all I ever did was write about my family, because I grew up in the West Country in a caravan. Excellent stuff. Paul, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We'll let you get off and enjoy the rest of your day. But all the very best with the final 21 days of campaign. And here's to getting it over the line, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Stuff. Take care. Look after yourself. So there you go. Do go check it out. It's an amazing looking book. The story's compelling. And it's been a pleasure to kind of share it with you. Do go check out Fairy Quest 3, Over, Under, and Beyond. It looks and it's an amazing campaign, so do go check it out. Thank you very much indeed for joining us for this special incidental episode. Don't forget we are back again on Sunday, and we have been speaking to a lot of comic creators over the last 2-3 months, and that's been fantastic.
But now we've actually got an actor that's going to be joining us on Sunday's show. So hopefully you can join us 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. It has been confirmed that Todd Stashwick is going to be joining us. He's also a comic creator himself. He's put himself his own book together, so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the Plague Nerdalogs, which he put together. Oh, he was contributing with Mark Bernardin's project. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be getting into his experiences at Comic Cons, including the first time that him and I met at D23 at a very interesting scenario on a Sunday morning where I approached him. I was wearing board shorts. I was not in my best attire at all, and he still came and talked to me. So it's going to be interesting to talk to him about his interactions with fans at the shows. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Do take care, and we'll see you on Sunday for another Talking Con, a cup of tea with the Englishman in San Diego. See you soon. Bye-bye.